All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive. And, today we're looking at a request that came in about the NELK boys.
Ah, the NELK boys.
I feel like there's so much curiosity surrounding these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you see full send everywhere, and, you wonder, like, who are these guys? How did this become such a phenomenon?
Yeah.
And how do they get away with, like, half the stuff that they do?
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people see Full Send as like the brand first, and they're like, who are the NELK boys?
Right.
What is this all stemming from? So it should be a really interesting deep dive today.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah.
So the request came in from a listener who really wanted to learn more about, their rise to fame, their impact, and maybe a bit of the controversy surrounding them.
Sure.
So just to kind of set the stage for everybody, we're going to be looking at some excerpts from a really great piece called 24NELKboys.txt,
Okay.
which I thought was really interesting and kind of lays out their whole story. So we're going to explore that signature send it lifestyle of theirs, how they went from just being pranksters on YouTube to building this multifaceted brand and, even dipping their toes into hard seltzer.
Right.
And then, can't avoid it. All the controversies they've stirred up along the way.
Of course.
So let's bring in our expert to help us break all this down.
Yeah. So the NELK boys, to some people, they might have seemed like they kind of came out of nowhere, exploded onto the scene.
Right.
But their story actually starts way back in 2010.
Wow, okay.
With, Kyle Forgerd, Jesse Sebastiani, and Steve Dillon Artis, a.k.a. Steve Will Do It.
Leaf will do it.
Yeah. And YouTube was kind of their playground back then, and pranks were their game.
So did those early pranks kind of set the tone for what they're known for today? Like,
Yeah.
were they already kind of pushing the boundaries back then, or did they evolve into that?
I mean, I think it was a mix. Some of their early stuff definitely wouldn't fly today.
I can imagine.
But even back then, they had this, knack for creating these, social experiments that were disguised as pranks.
Interesting.
They would push boundaries, they'd see how people would react, and they would film the whole thing.
So it wasn't just like silly pranks, it was actually stuff that made you think.
Right, exactly.
Clever.
Yeah, and that's like a thread that runs through their whole career, really this blurring of lines between entertainment and reality.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's part of what made them so captivating to
Because
people.
so controversial.
And controversial, right, exactly.
So we've got the pranks, we've got the social experiments.
Right.
But I think what really sets the NELK boys apart, and what our listener is probably wondering about, is this whole send it philosophy they're famous for. It's like their battle cry.
Right, send it.
Yeah.
It's more than just like a catchphrase. It's like their brand essence,
Right.
Send it is all about embracing the moment,
Yeah.
taking risks, and not letting fear hold you back.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, that message really resonates with a lot of people, especially younger audiences who are, craving that sense of freedom and adventure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like a modern day carpe diem, right?
Yeah.
Seize the day, live life to the fullest.
Right.
But I think you're hitting on something really important here. It's not just about like bungee jumping or pulling crazy stunts.
Right.
It's like a mindset that you can apply to anything, like starting a business or, traveling the world.
You nailed it. Yeah. And that's like part of their genius. They've managed to make send it aspirational.
Totally.
It's not just about reckless behavior. It's about chasing your dreams, whatever those might be.
Right.
And that message is really powerful.
It is no wonder they built such a massive following.
Yeah.
But, the cynic in me can't help but wonder if it's all a bit calculated.
Uh-huh.
Is send it a genuine philosophy, or is it just a brilliant marketing tactic?
I think that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
The NELK boys are undeniably savvy entrepreneurs. They build a whole empire on this idea.
Yeah.
But I also think there's an element of authenticity there. They do seem to genuinely embody that send it spirit, even if it's amped up for the cameras.
Right.
A little bit.
Right. So genuine or calculated, there's no denying their success. They've gone way beyond just YouTube pranks at this point.
Wow.
They've got this whole full send brand, this whole sprawling empire that they've built.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
They've managed to leverage that brand across multiple platforms in a way that most YouTubers can only dream of.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not just merch. It's like a whole ecosystem designed to reinforce that send it lifestyle.
So let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
First, you've got the merch, full send, plastered on everything.
Oh, yeah.
Hats, hoodies, and people are eating it up.
They are. It's brilliant, really.
Yeah.
For their fans wearing that merch, it's like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
It's a way to signal that they're part of this tribe, this community that embraces this risk-taking, living life on your own terms kind of attitude.
It's like they've tapped into that primal human need to belong, to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Exactly.
And then you've got their foray into the beverage market with Happy Dad.
Right. Happy Dad hard seltzer.
It's like they're fueling the send it lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
Starting, having fun, letting loose.
Yeah.
It all ties in.
It all ties in perfectly.
And then, of course, you can't forget the Full Send podcast,
Right.
which has become a huge part of their brand.
Yeah.
I mean, their guest list is super diverse.
Oh, yeah.
They've had everyone from Dana White, the president of UFC, to Lil Yachty, the rapper.
Not bad, everyone.
It's such a smart strategy because it's like they're bringing in these big names from different worlds, which just broadens their appeal.
Exactly.
And it gives them credibility beyond just, the YouTube prankster image.
Right. And think about it from a business perspective.
Yeah.
By having these high-profile guests on their podcast, they're expanding their reach. They're tapping into new audiences.
Uh-huh.
And they're cementing their status as more than just, pranksters.
Yeah.
They're becoming like media moguls.
It's true.
It's brilliant.
It's also interconnected.
Yeah.
Like each piece of the puzzle is reinforcing the others.
Exactly. They've created this whole Send It universe.
Right.
And their fans are eager to be a part of it. They buy the merch, they drink the seltzer, they listen to the podcast.
Uh-huh.
It's a full-blown lifestyle brand.
It is. But, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the other side of the coin, the controversies that come along with this brand of entertainment.
Right.
So that's what we're going to talk about next, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Because,
we've laid out kind of all the good stuff, but living life on the edge, pushing boundaries,
yeah,
it inevitably leads to some bumps along the way.
right. Some bumps in the road for sure.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick pause here. And when we come back, we'll dive into that darker side of the NELK Boys empire and explore those controversies in detail.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back. Okay. So we're back. And, we've been talking about the NELK Boys, their rise to fame, their send it philosophy.
Right.
And, they've clearly built this massive brand, this whole full send empire.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been all smooth sailing, right?
Well, yeah, of course not.
There's been a lot of controversy along the way.
Right.
So I think our listeners probably wondering, what are some of the specific incidents that have sparked debate?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's almost inevitable, right? When you build a brand around pushing boundaries and taking risks,
right,
you're bound to cross some lines.
Yeah.
And the NELK Boys have definitely had their share of moments that have made people question their judgment.
Yeah, for sure. One that comes to mind immediately is that stunt they pulled at the convenience store.
Oh, yeah.
Staging a fake robbery.
Right.
I mean, talk about a recipe for chaos.
Yeah, and I think that's where the send it philosophy gets a little tricky.
Right.
It's one thing to, encourage people to take risks in their own lives.
Yeah.
But it's quite another to create situations that could put innocent bystanders at risk or cause genuine fear and distress.
Yeah, I can imagine people thinking it's a real robbery, panicking,
right?
Potentially getting hurt in the commotion.
Exactly.
Even if it was all a joke.
Yeah.
The consequences could have been very real.
Yeah, for sure. And it raises questions about responsibility. As content creators with a huge following,
right?
The NELK Boys have a responsibility to think about the potential impact of their actions.
Yeah.
Even if they're framed as entertainment.
And it's not just the pranks themselves, right?
Right.
They've also been criticized for some of their social experiments.
Right.
Which, some people have found exploitative or insensitive.
Yeah. Are you thinking of the one where they pretended to be homeless?
Yes.
To see how people would react?
That's the one.
Yeah. That one definitely sparked a lot of debate.
Yeah, it's a tough one because on the surface, it might seem like they're trying to raise awareness about an important issue.
Right.
But the way they went about it, some people felt like it was disrespectful to people who are actually experiencing homelessness.
Right.
It's like they were using a serious social problem as fodder for entertainment.
Exactly. And that's where the line between edgy and offensive gets really blurry.
Yeah.
Right. Intentions matter. But so does the execution.
Yeah.
And in this case, I think a lot of people felt like they missed the mark.
I think so, too. And then it's not just their actions that have landed them in hot water. Right.
Yeah.
They've also been called out for some of the things they've said.
Yeah.
Both on their YouTube channel and their podcast.
Yeah. There have been accusations of misogynistic and homophobic remarks.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a huge problem.
Right.
And it's something that can't be brushed aside as just,
yeah,
boys being boys or locker room talk.
Exactly, because words have power.
Right.
And when you have millions of followers,
Especially young, impressionable followers. Right.
you have a responsibility to be mindful of the messages you're sending.
Absolutely. And this kind of gets to the heart of a larger conversation about the role of influencers in today's society.
Uh-huh.
You know, are they role models?
Yeah.
Should they be held to a higher standard?
Right.
Or are they simply entertainers who are, not responsible for the way their content is interpreted?
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Right.
But I think it's a conversation worth having,
Yeah.
especially as the NELK boys' influence continues to grow.
Yeah, I think it's something our listeners are probably grappling with, too.
Yeah.
Where is a consumer of their content
Right.
draw the line?
Uh-huh.
Can you separate the entertainment from the potential harm?
Exactly. It's about being a critical consumer of media.
Right.
Understanding that things aren't always black and white. And that even something as seemingly lighthearted as a prank video can have real-world implications.
Yeah, for sure. And it's worth remembering that the NELK boys aren't operating in a vacuum. They were part of a larger cultural landscape where shock value and pushing boundaries often get rewarded with attention and clicks.
So how do we as a society grapple with this tension?
Right.
How do we encourage creativity and freedom of expression while also holding people accountable for the impact of their words and actions?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a simple answer.
Right.
But I do think it starts with having these conversations, with being aware of the complexities,
Right.
and with recognizing that we all have a role to play
Yeah.
in shaping the kind of media landscape we want to see.
Okay, so we've talked about the pranks, the social experiments, the controversial remarks.
Right.
But it's important to acknowledge that controversy isn't the only legacy of the NELK boys, right? Right? They've also achieved incredible success. They built a business empire. They've inspired millions of people. It's a complicated legacy.
Yeah.
Full of contradictions.
So how do we ultimately assess their impact?
Right.
Are they cultural icons? Are they entrepreneurial masterminds? Or are they just a product of the internet age destined to fade away as quickly as they rose to fame?
That's where we need to kind of dig a little deeper and look at their overall impact, which is what we'll do next. So stay with us. Okay. So, we've explored the NELK boys' rise, their send it philosophy, their business savvy, and even, their missteps.
Right.
Now let's tackle, I guess, the big question.
Yeah.
What's their lasting impact?
I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the pranks and the controversies.
Right.
But there is a bigger picture here. Have they actually, changed the game?
I think it's safe to say that they've definitely left their mark on internet culture.
Okay.
They were pioneers of a certain style of content.
Right. Raw, unfiltered, and often, pushing the boundaries of what's considered acceptable.
Yeah, and they did it at a time when YouTube was still evolving.
Right.
Like the rules of engagement were still being written.
Exactly.
So they kind of helped shape the landscape of online entertainment.
For better or for worse.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But I think you can see their influence in a lot of the content that's being created today, even beyond the prank genre.
Yeah.
Like that emphasis on authenticity, on connecting with an audience on a personal level.
Yeah.
I mean, they really excelled at that.
They did. It's like they figured out the secret sauce of building a loyal fan base online.
Right. And then they took that formula and turned it into a multi-million-dollar business empire.
Yeah, they weren't just content creators.
Right.
They were entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They understood the power of branding,
Right.
of building a lifestyle around their content.
Mm-hmm.
And they were early adopters of diversifying their revenue streams, going beyond just YouTube ad revenue to create, their own merch, their own hard seltzer, their own podcast.
It's a model that a lot of creators are following today, but the NELK boys were among the first to do it on such a massive scale.
Yeah.
They showed the world that it's possible to turn a YouTube channel into a full-fledged media company.
Yeah, for sure. And they did it all while staying true to their brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. That send it ethos.
Right.
It might not always be pretty. It might rub some people the wrong way.
Yeah.
But it's undeniably authentic.
Yeah.
And that authenticity is what resonates with their fans.
It's like they're saying, this is who we are, take it or leave it.
Exactly.
And millions of people have chosen to take it.
They have. And that's a powerful testament to the strength of their brand.
Yeah.
They've created a community, a movement, a whole generation of Send It enthusiasts.
But can they sustain that momentum?
Right.
I mean, the internet's constantly evolving.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
hot today might be old news tomorrow. So can the NELK boys adapt, or are they going to become like a relic of a bygone era?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
They've already shown a willingness to evolve, to experiment with new platforms and content formats.
Right.
But the challenge is going to be to do it without alienating their core fan base.
Right.
The people who fell in love with their raw, unfiltered style.
It's a tough balancing act.
Yeah.
They need to stay true to themselves while also appealing to a wider audience.
Right.
If they want to stay relevant.
Yeah. And they'll need to navigate that, the ever-increasing scrutiny that comes with being a successful influencer.
Oh, for sure.
They're no longer just a bunch of kids making prank videos in their basement.
Right.
They're a global brand with a huge platform.
Yeah.
And their every move is being watched.
So what's the final verdict?
Right.
Are the NELK boys cultural icons? Are they entrepreneurial geniuses, or are they just a product of the internet age?
I think they're a bit of all three.
Yeah.
They've undeniably had a significant impact on internet culture.
Uh-huh.
They've built a successful business empire.
Right.
And their rise is a testament to the power of online platforms to create overnight sensations.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
But their story is also kind of a cautionary tale.
Right.
A reminder that fame and fortune come with a price.
Mm-hmm.
The controversies, the backlash,
Right.
the constant pressure to stay relevant. It's a lot to handle.
It is. It is.
And ultimately, it's up to each individual to decide how they feel about the NELK boys.
Right.
Love them, hate them, or somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Their story is a fascinating reflection of our times.
It's a story that makes you think.
Yeah.
That challenges your assumptions. And that leaves you with more questions than answers.
Right.
And honestly, that's exactly what a good deep dive should do.
Well said.
So to our listener, we leave you with this.
Yeah.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning and keep sending it.
Responsibly, of course.
Responsibly, of course. Until next time, keep those brain cells firing.
Yes.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
See us.